Who's going to win NBA's Most Improved Player of the Year? So I came across an article that was talking about the odds for each player to win this year's Most Improved Player of the Year. And as you can see at the top is Victor Wembanyama, and then at the bottom, my face is kind of covering it, but Keontae George is on there, for example, at plus 3,000. So let's talk about, do we think that the top three are going to be the top three candidates for Most Improved? And who do I think is going to win? Now, something interesting to note that it said in the article is that the last 5 winners of the Most Improved Player Award have been an All-Star, meaning they were an All-Star in the season that they won Most Improved. So while that may not be a foolproof plan as to how to pick somebody to win, it seems to be almost working perfectly. So to just give you the list, it was Tyrese Maxey, Lauri Markkanen, Ja Morant, Brandon Ingram, and Julius Randle. So with that being said, besides Victor Wembanyama's obvious talent, obvious skill set, and the fact that we all expect him to be even better next year, he has the best odds, or one of the best odds rather, to be an All-Star next year. So I feel like that also factors in as to how he is the #1 favorite here. I guess being an All-Star and like being Most Improved go hands in hand though, if you think about it, just because like if you were recognized as an All-Star that season and you weren't one the season prior, clearly you took a big jump to become an All-Star. So like in a way, it kind of makes sense. Do I think Victor Wembanyama should be the odds-on favorite? Honestly, Victor Wembanyama, I feel like is going to be really good next season. And he has a really good shot to make an All-Star team. So it's really hard to deny him being a top candidate for Most Improved. But I understand the argument that people have against someone like a Victor Wembanyama or other players in the past who, like when Ja Morant won, there was a little bit of controversy. Because while Ja Morant was really good that year, he was also really good the year before. And if you remember, he gave the award to his teammate Desmond Bane, who I don't remember if he finished in the top 3 for Most Improved, but he was definitely one of the candidates, you know, throughout the year. And if you remember, I feel like I remember a lot of people not thinking, like not saying that Ja didn't deserve the award, like he definitely made a big improvement, but it was just the fact that he was already really good. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like most people associate being Most Improved, and even I do in a way, with someone who kind of came out of nowhere in a way. Like when CJ McCollum won it. If you remember, CJ McCollum I think he averaged like 8 points per game the year prior, like something like that. And then he made a huge jump to like close to 20 or whatever he ended up averaging. Like, I feel like a lot of us associate Most Improved with something like that rather than someone who was already really good and then just take another, you know, step forward. I'm not taking anything away from Ja Morant because again, he was really awesome that season. And I'm not taking anything away from Victor Wembanyama because I expect him to be awesome and I have been rooting for him, obviously, like most people. So it's not that, but I do understand the argument that it's kind of like, well, not only do you expect him to be good, but like that's just an opinion thing, but it's the fact that they were already good. Like, not just like okay good, like really good. So yes, Victor Wembanyama should be a top candidate for Most Improved. And he could honestly make a huge jump, like bigger than other players where regardless of how good he was last season, like he should be the clear-cut favorite. We haven't seen it yet, obviously, because the season didn't start. But he could really take that jump. Evan Mobley, I feel like I talked about him last season, actually, when I was giving my predictions for Most Improved. I thought that last season was the year that he was going to take that big jump offensively. And he definitely did make, you know, take steps forward. So I can understand why he's second on this list because I thought it was going to happen last year. So it does kind of make sense. Jonathan Kuminga, if you watch this page, you know I'm a fan of his. Now, I also had him as a candidate to win last year, I believe, in my video. If I didn't, I'm pretty sure I did though, because I was like, I just feel like he's going to take a big step forward. And he took a huge step. And I talked about this once before, but one of the reasons as to why he wasn't a top 3 candidate is because he did not qualify based on the game, you know, requirement. Because he took a huge step forward. And while I do think Tyrese Maxey was going to win regardless, I do think Kuminga could have finished second. Like, he was really that good. He took such a big step forward. but because he didn't meet the requirement, that's why he wasn't a top 3 candidate. But for me, it's a little bit hard. And listen, again, you know I'm a Kuminga fan if you watch this page. It's a little bit hard for me to see him be, although actually Klay Thompson is gone, so maybe. I'm just saying, like, he took such a big step forward last year that in a way I feel like it kind of would diminish, unfortunately, for him, like the way that the voters would view it, because they'd be like, it's not a huge jump because he took a huge jump last year, if that makes sense. But at the same time, Klay Thompson is gone, so he is going to be not the focal point of scoring. Obviously, that's Steph, but he's going to have a bigger, focal point, or be a bigger focal point on the scoring side. So he really could still be a candidate. He really could take another big step forward. I love the Brandon Pajemski one. I also love his game. I talked about it once before. He's just like, he just does a little bit of everything. He doesn't make mistakes. He does everything right. He is such a good player to have in your team. If you don't watch Brandon Pajemski, he a little bit reminds me of Derek White. So if you love Derek White and you know how important Derek White is, then you'll love Brandon Pajemski. I actually think that's a really interesting pick as being a top 4 candidate for most improved. I could see it happen. Like, there is a world where Brandon takes a huge step forward. Like, you can see it in his skill set, but at the same time, I don't know if he's going to get enough touches scoring-wise to be most improved, regardless of, like, his skill set being there. If you're someone who likes to take on a risky bet, honestly, Brandon Pajemski, although like being 4th is not like super risky odds-wise, honestly though, that's like a dark horse there. That is someone that, it kind of makes sense. Scottie Barnes is kind of in the same category as Jonathan Kuminga. Not exactly the same, but in the sense that he already did take a big step forward. So I feel like it would be really hard for him to win most improved, because I just feel like, again, his step forward diminishes a bit what he would do this season, which is unfortunate for him again. So he could, but I'm not sure I see that. Jalen Williams, also another one. Although Jalen Williams took such a big step forward this year that his potential is definitely higher than people thought it was. So I will give Jalen Williams a little bit of an edge over like a Scottie Barnes, in the sense that the potential could be even crazier. So I understand why he's on this list, but he does also have a little bit of that Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Kuminga syndrome, where he really was good last year and already took a big step forward. And then the last person I want to focus on the list is Immanuel Quickley. Now, 2 years ago, if you remember, he finished 2nd, I believe, pretty sure it was 2nd, to Malcolm Brogdon. And while at the beginning of the year, it seemed like Malcolm Brogdon had the award on lock, Quickley was firing for the second half of the season, and he really made a push to potentially win. And I thought it was neck and neck. It was really close. It could have went either way. Like, that's how good Quickley was. Him and Scottie Barnes are teammates, so that also may hinder both of them, because they may cancel each other out. But I just had this funny feeling, because I watched him play so much when he was on the Knicks, because he was just so much fun to watch. And he just seems like someone who works really hard. And while I do think Scottie Barnes is also going to improve, I see a world where Quickley takes a bigger step forward next season. Not necessarily that he's better than Scottie Barnes. I can't say whether that will happen or not. But I see a world where he does take a bigger step forward and he becomes like the star of the show for the year, if that makes sense.